Okay, everyone can see and hear me okay? Just looking for a few yeses there. Okay, great. Okay, so good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's great to see so many people from different parts of the world, and I'm delighted to be with you this morning. I am going to be talking about life skills and the teacher, because I believe that teachers have got a unique role to play in filling the demand for life skills and for this global skills gap that exists. So what I want to do in this webinar is a number of things. I want to, okay, it's very quiet. Let me try and get that a bit louder. How's that? Hopefully that's better. What I want to do is really for you to go away thinking about things more, thinking about some of these aspects more, and wanting to do more. So each of the points that I'm going to be making in the webinar should hopefully encourage you to find out more about some of these things, and to take more of an active role as a teacher. So in the webinar, what I want to cover is an understanding of what life skills are, and in fact, I think I've got onto the, yeah, this is where I should be. Yeah, so I want to look at a stronger understanding of what life skills are and the role that other competencies play within life skills. So things like optimism and resilience, and how they play a key role in how you develop your life skills. Also, that an awareness that these kinds of skills can be developed in others. And we'll talk a little bit about how that happens and what the teacher can be doing to encourage that. And I want to also that you gain confidence, so that you have more confidence in your own ability to deliver these kinds of skills and helping other people develop. And I think fundamentally it's important to understand that there is a global skills gap, and it is getting wider and getting bigger, and seeing that there are the roles of teachers to play in plugging this gap. And I'm going to start off probably with the last 2 points, because I think having that context helps. So what are life skills? So fundamentally, these are skills that underlie all of our behaviour. So whatever we're doing, how we interact with people, how we communicate with people, how we feel on a particular day, this is all part of how we then behave. So life skills are a key thing around how we go about our life and how we go about our work. They are a really deciding factor now, more than ever before, in getting work and in keeping work. They're also really they're also really important for your happiness and for your well-being. So it's not just about work, not just about employment, it's also about you as a person and your own well-being. And these kinds of skills they cover a whole bunch of different things, okay? So when you start looking into more about what life skills are, you will come across a range of different areas that they cover. So they will range from things like problem solving, critical thinking, and I know there's a talk later on about critical thinking, to personal skills around your own self-awareness, around you, so your strengths and weaknesses, how you communicate with other people, your sense of awareness about things in you, which could be anything from stress to confidence, okay? And practical skills, so things around how you organize yourself, time management, your accountability. So life skills cover lots and lots of things. And sometimes I also refer to life skills as soft skills. And you'll come across lots of different interpretations of soft skills as well. I can see some messages around quality of sound. I'm assuming all that's being dealt with. I don't know whether I need to do anything. I'm going to turn this up a little bit more, if that helps. Okay. So I want to do a little poll with you. And the questions are around finding work. Okay, so when it comes to finding work, what is the most important factor? Now I know we've got 1, 1, 1, 1 here, so I'm not sure whether we can do the poll, but I'm hoping that we can. Hopefully Henry can help. So what is the most important factor when it comes to finding work? Is it your qualifications and experience? Is it your network and people you know? Is it your personality and character? Or is it your soft skills? So if you can't do the poll, then just type some answers in the box. Okay, if we can do the poll, I'm going to be relying on Henry to help me with that. But if not, don't worry about it. Just type some things in the box. So what is the most important factor when it comes to finding work? Your qualifications and experience, your network, who you know, your personality and character, or your soft skills. Okay, come on, can we get a few more responses? Yes, that's true. There's a lot of focus on qualifications, but they are very important. Qualifications and experience, qualifications and personality. Okay, any more coming? Okay, so well, really, about in terms of this, actually, they are all probably equally important. And I say that because right now you probably need to have all of this stuff. It's all part of what's going to differentiate you when it comes to finding work. So qualifications and experience are often very much viewed as the essential points, the essential things. But unless you are using your network effectively, unless you are very aware of your soft skills and your life skills, and you know how to use them, and to a certain extent the role that your personality and character plays, and that can be, you know, could be seen as an unfair disadvantage, but it's life. But these things, all of these things together are really, really, really important. So not one thing over the other, okay? They are all equally important. Now, there's been a few studies done around what are key qualities that people need to have, key skills and qualities. By the way, again, when I talk about skills, you can see quite often there'll be a I'll also talk about qualities as well. So I kind of, you know, jump around from these different things. Now I'm going to try and just highlight some of these a little bit if I can. I'm not sure it's working that well, but I'll try. No, okay. I've got a list here, and if I was presenting to you, I would sort of bring these up one by one, which I can't do really at the moment. So what I'll try, maybe I can try that. No. Okay, I think that's what, okay. I'll try this. So, this is a list of different kinds of skills and qualities, but these are ones that are really, really crucial now more than ever in terms of how successful we are and how effective we are. And these are connected with the workplace, but also connected just with life in general. So, you know, we have to be more adaptable and flexible than ever before because we are living in such a fast-changing, fast-moving world. We are often having to make decisions very, very rapidly, but actually with far less information. So even though we have more information than we've ever had in our lives before, information overload, in terms of actual quality information and using that to make decisions very, very quickly, that is a skill that we need to be developing more. Likewise with managing complexity, because of because we have such huge amounts of information available to us. We need to be much better at doing things like taking risks, for example. If we are to be innovative and creative and resourceful, if we are to be working in jobs that don't maybe exist yet, then we have to be willing to take risks. We have to be entrepreneurial. We've got to be much better at collaborating with other people. We live in a world where everything is shared. Just look at this webinar this morning where we are interacting with people from all over the world. That is a normal part of everyday business now. Most businesses work globally, but whether they are a small business or a large business. So collaboration is really, really important. But there is a number one skill or quality missing from this list. And I wonder if you can guess what this might be. And you can type some answers in the chat room. Although let me just try and keep track of this. Okay, here we go. Sorry, I wasn't keeping track of what you were writing here. So you've got things like empathy, communication, let's see, what have we got? Emotional intelligence, flexibility, good judgment. Okay, all of these things, really, really, really important. There's number one skill that is not on this list. That is something which I was just reading recently about, is apparently the number one skill that we all need to be better at. I'll tell you what it is. If I can get this to go on to the next thing. Okay, here we are. It is the ability to focus. The ability to focus on one particular thing. And this is because our attention is being taken into all different directions. It's very, very hard for us now to focus because we have so many things competing for our attention. We are constantly distracted. We are constantly multitasking. We don't do things one at a time, and we don't focus. And focus is about listening. It's about being present. It's about being aware. And this is something that we have become very, very bad at. Very, very bad at. I have been doing some work. Whoops, this is likes to go very quickly. This I've been doing some work in Bangladesh, and part of that work was looking at the link between soft skills and employability and the role of English. So bringing those three things together: soft skills, employability, and English. And as part of that, I was trying to get a clear definition of what soft skills were. And all these different terms that you can see here, this list of terms, was how different people described what they were. So they were called employability skills, they were called graduate capabilities, they were called personal qualities, they were called core skills, generic skills, essential skills, life skills, transferable skills. Whole bunch of different interpretations, which is why I was saying to you earlier on, I interchange these terms like skills and qualities myself, because they are really, that nobody's got a clear grip on what is the right terminology to use. But you'll hear all of these different terms being used, I think, in different parts of the world when it comes to things like soft skills and life skills. And is there a right terminology or not? Again, it's something which is still being defined. It's still being clarified. What are these skills? But it's key that they are things around the list that I was talking about before. Yes, intercultural understanding, all of these things are part of life skills. So your awareness, your flexibility, your enthusiasm, your ability to collaborate, work as a team, to lead people, to focus, to listen, to manage your time, empathy. You know, if I were to just go through some of the things that you're writing or that you have been writing here, these are all part of what life skills are and these skills that are in this list. Now, there is a fundamental skills gap, okay? And there's a lot of mixed thinking about if there is a skills gap and what the skills gap is and why it's there and so on. But there are some fundamental things, I think, to understand about why there is a skills gap and what is the skills gap. And one of the things that's key here is that working for a living has never been harder. So all kinds of jobs now, every single kind of job at every single level requires a degree. Okay, it does in the UK anyway. So it doesn't matter what the job is, it requires a degree. So everybody's out getting degrees. Everybody's out there getting their degrees, getting their qualifications because they have to. Okay, they have to. People are working really, really hard. They're not necessarily working smartly, but they are working very, very hard and not necessarily progressing in the way that they might be expecting. That's why in the next slide I have an escalator here, because the way it used to be was that you would start at the beginning of the escalator and you would get your qualifications, you would get your degree, you would do certain things, and then you would kind of follow up a predictable path, fairly predictable. So you'd go up the escalator and you would go into your entry-level job, you would then keep developing your skills, you would hopefully move on, get promoted, and not necessarily stay in the same company, but you would be moving forward and going forward and developing in a consistent kind of way, in a more or less consistent kind of way. That is no longer the case. That escalator that you see in front of you, that's jammed. At every point, that escalator is jammed. It's jammed if you're at the beginning of it, it's jammed if you're in the middle, and it's definitely jammed if you're at the end of it, okay? And, you know, this whole thing around education being between the ages of 6 and 22 is finished. Okay, we need to be constantly developing and learning our whole lives. Now this, whoops, okay, stay there. Okay, good slide. This is the ideal profile of somebody at work today. And what's happened in terms of education is that we've become, in education's been very good at helping people develop skills and helping people develop knowledge, and less good at the behaviours, which means that people are performing in the right way at the right time. And there are many, many reports that support this and show that there is a gap between what happens here in education and what happens here when we are out in the workplace. And in terms of how we are working at the moment and the way that we work, this is a study from the UK Commission for Employment and Skills, and this is going across every single kind of job. So it doesn't matter what your job is. You can be a teacher, you can be an engineer, you can be a plumber, you could be somebody working in finance. It doesn't matter what your job is, but this is your likely scenario. Okay, so this is in terms of all of us, that we are working at very high speeds for most of our working life. So the emphasis on productivity and in being productive and focusing is extremely high. And if we don't know how to manage that productivity, we're going to be in trouble because we're going to be under a lot of stress. So if we are working at those very, very high speeds, it's crucial that we know how to manage ourselves effectively. We're also working under pressure, a lot of pressure, very tight deadlines most of the time. And at the same time, in this environment, you've got a lot of competition, hyper competition, because people are afraid of losing their jobs, they're worried about making enough money, and these kind of things have never been higher. And we are slaves to technology, and we are bound by technology, and we need to know how to manage that better as well. So work is very, very hard for most people in most industries. And this is, again, where life skills and soft skills are very, very important.
Hi everyone. We just lost Emma temporarily, so I'm going to get her back. Oh, it looks like she's back with us now. So here's Emma. Emma, can you hear me? If you're there, Emma, just press the talk button. I can see you, so that's a good sign.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, excellent. Okay.
Yes?
All right, I'll turn my video off again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not sure how long I was talking to an empty screen there, but never mind. Okay, right, I'm going to move on to the next slide. Yeah, we are slaves to technology. Look at us. We're pathetic. Okay, here we go. Let's see, where are we? Okay. Yeah, okay. So one example of one of the reasons for the skills gap and this whole thing about being overqualified and everything needing a degree and so on is something that's happened quite recently. And this was an example I came across where there were some jobs at Costa Coffee in London, and we had more than 1,700 people applying for these jobs. And most people were overqualified, very low pay, but a huge issue around who's chasing jobs. So there are issues around skills gaps in different points, and different points around every job requiring a degree and requiring skills. Then you've got situations like this where you have people who can't find work or have been perhaps they've been let go, or there've been job cuts and so on, so they're chasing after jobs like this. So one of the arguments around skills gap is that there aren't any jobs out there. There aren't any jobs out there, and so everyone's chasing after what little jobs there are. Okay, that's one of the arguments given. However, there is a lot of disagreement about this. Okay, so again, what I want you to be doing after this webinar and thinking about this is going away and getting more information about some of this stuff, finding out more and being more aware of it. If teachers are going to be playing a role in plugging this gap, then you need to be aware of some of these things. So there is a lot of disagreement about the skills gap. And one sort of interesting statistic that I came across, which I haven't got up here, I only just found it this morning, was that from education, 72% think that graduates are ready for work. Okay, so from the educational side, and only 42% from the employment side agree. So there is a gap between the two. Another reason is we don't have enough of the right graduates. So people aren't studying the right kinds of disciplines where the jobs are needed. So in things like healthcare, engineering, computer science, and so on. I'm just trying to see if I can show you this. Okay, this one around training is really, really important, because you will find a lot of disagreement and controversy around these two things. So the employers say, why should we be providing training? That's the job of education. And education says, we shouldn't be providing training, we should be educating people. We should be getting them ready and helping them to study. We shouldn't be preparing them for the workplace. And you may fall on either side of these things. My belief is that actually this, we need to bridge this gap. There needs to be a much stronger connection between education and employment. So the, education, most education does not prepare people for the actual real-life work of today. So it's quite hard. And many jobs that people are going to be working in don't even exist yet. So it's very difficult for education to be helping to provide in that. Oh, I can see someone here talking about Bahrain. I've worked there in the past. Yeah, I agree. There are definitely places, and there are definitely some establishments that do see an opportunity to provide training and to provide professional development. But it's not across the range, okay? Yes, we have vocational educational training in the UK, but I'm talking about, you know, in the UK, most people here, okay, it is changing, but most people here, they want that degree, okay? They want to go to university and they want a degree. They don't want a vocational qualification, okay? They want the university. So that's what I'm talking about when I talk about education here. There's a growing need for soft skills. So many young people are very tech savvy, but they don't have communication skills. That's one of the biggest complaints from employers around young people, is they can't communicate, they can't make a presentation, they can't express themselves articulately, they can't sometimes even look people in the eye. Any of you who've got teenagers or interact with teenagers, you will know what I'm talking about, okay? So, and traditional education focuses on jobs that don't exist yet, okay? And again, what I said earlier on, this whole thing that education is between the ages of 6 and 22, that's rubbish. Workers, everyone has to develop and train non-stop now. Okay, I'm going to move on a little bit because I'm just aware of the time and I want to make sure we have time for questions as well. So I thought I would provide a nice picture of Tower Bridge, London, because I believe there is a way for teachers to be helping to bridge this gap, okay? That's where you come in. So here are some sort of ideas and examples of how to bridge this gap. So I was saying earlier on, there needs to be more partnership and more understanding between education and the labour market. So they need to be talking to each other a lot more than they do. Yes, that happens in some places, but it doesn't happen consistently, okay? This is quite an interesting thing. Training is changing. So Google have come up with an interesting initiative for something called the nano degree. So the idea is that you get online training so you can go immediately into technology jobs. It's not expensive and it happens quickly. So one of the issues that we have, certainly in the UK, is that education is very expensive and it takes too long. Why do you need to have 3 or 4 years to do a degree? Yeah, so this is changing. Education needs to be tied into real life work experience and into experiential learning. We need more mentoring and life skills, and this is where you guys come in, okay? So teachers who recognize the gap and are skilled and prepared to provide a solution can play a really big role here, okay? And that's you. That is you, all of you, okay? And I want to talk a little bit more about, I'm going to skip this poll if that's okay. I want to move more into experiential learning and talking about that. So I might come back to the poll a bit later. So experiential learning is something which is all about what you do. Okay, the idea is that you have to experience something and do it to learn from it. So it's going completely away from theoretical learning and theoretical education to experiential, to doing. And experiential learning is the key for learning life skills. So when it comes to learning how to be collaborative, how to communicate clearly, how to communicate well, you've got to be taken through a cycle of experiential learning by a skilled facilitator. So what happens in experiential learning is that you have an opportunity. So an opportunity is the learning, you know, the classroom environment, the skill that you might be working on. That is, you are facilitated through the experience, and that's where the learning takes place, and you take that into the next opportunity. So I'll explain that a little bit more clearly. You've probably come across this before anyway, because you're all teachers. So it is about, first of all, doing something, and that could be something very, very simple. It could be a team building exercise. It could be a listening skills exercise, anything where you are trying something out, where you're actively doing something. And then you need to be given an opportunity to interpret what was happening in that exercise. And you should be helped to do that by the facilitator, by the teacher. And then thinking through that, generalizing, so thinking about how that applies to you, to your experiences, to what you do, and how you might apply that the next time that you need to work in a team, for example. Okay. So life skills is a kind of formal learning, but it's using experiential learning methodology. So people learn life skills in different ways. Okay, they're going to learn that. That's kind of what the poll was about. So they're going to learn it from, you learn your life skills. Part of it is about who you are, your character, your personality. Part of it is about how you're brought up, what you experience as you're growing up as a child in education and so on. Part of it is through the experiences that you have in life. And a big part of it can be through what you're learning in the classroom. I wanted to just revisit critical thinking. I know you're going to have a webinar on this afternoon, so you might want to think about a little bit of this if you are going to be going to that webinar. So critical thinking skills, so this is one of the key areas of life skills. But what I've put up here is about what critical thinking is today. So critical thinking has been around for eons, and it's often thought of as a kind of philosophy or philosophizing. Just looking at some of these comments. Okay. But critical thinking today is something different. Okay, so critical thinking skills today are around having what's called a high fluid intelligence. And high fluid intelligence is not about IQ. It's not about here, IQ, okay? It is more about your EQ, your emotional intelligence, your ability to solve problems, your ability to be creative, to come up with different kinds of solutions. That is where critical thinking comes in. Critical thinking is also linked to being open and being able and willing to challenge things. It's also about taking initiative, coming up with new ideas. And there's another point to critical thinking, which is called moderate agreeableness, if that's even a word. And that is about your communication skills. You know, are you able to be warm when the situation calls for it, but are you able to be argumentative as well if you need to be? So critical thinking is summarized here as a whole bunch of different things to what you might traditionally think critical thinking is about. That's just one. I just want to show that to you because that's one of the one example of how these life skills are changing and how, you know, critical thinking in education is often thought of being able to question things. And yes, it is about questioning, but it's also about these things. Okay, so now I just want to just kind of get a bit of a clearer view of what experiential learning actually is. And it should be something that you remember, okay? And I'll give you an example. A few weeks ago, about 4 or 5 weeks ago now, I had a singing lesson. I wanted to audition for a small choir, and so I had a singing lesson to help me prepare for the audition. And I remember sort of almost every aspect of that singing lesson because it was so petrifying, and I really had to go out of my comfort zone. And I learned a lot about myself from that. I learned a lot about my confidence levels. I learned about how strategies I could use to help me if I'm feeling nervous. And the point is that that experience of that singing lesson from 5 or 6 weeks ago is still with me. Okay, I can remember it. Yeah, singing in a choir. I got in, by the way. And you may have come across some of this before, which is how we recall things. So if you are, your ability to recall something in terms of your learning is much higher if you have been told something, been shown something, and you've experienced it. Okay, it's the highest after 3 weeks, and then after 3 months, 65%. Okay, most of the time when you go about learning things and doing things and going to lectures or anything like that, you're going to forget most of it within a couple of weeks. Sad but true. Okay, so all these lovely students going to university and traditional learning, they're not going to remember a lot of it. They're just not going to remember a lot of it. And this is something, this is from 1994. This is old, tested and tried research. This is a really interesting slide in terms of the way that we learn. So if you look at this, what you've got here is a scale of different types of learning. So you've got lectures, you've got small group discussions, you've got role plays, which we often think of role play as being really experiential and interactive, but actually it's kind of in the middle here. Simulations, group exercises, but the highest one is real life experience during a session which is debriefed effectively. And what you've got here is the biggest impact on the learner is happening here, okay? Facilitator skill is also needs to be very high to make that work well. Okay, not to say that giving a lecture doesn't require a lot of skill, because it does, but for experiential learning, the skill is very high to get that maximum impact, to get that maximum involvement. I am going to be doing a Q&A. Okay, I know we've overrun a little bit time-wise. But yes, we will do some Q&A. I just want to run quickly through how an experiential activity might work in terms of you as a facilitator running that. One of the key things about being a facilitator and helping somebody develop their life skills, their soft skills, is being fully aware, being very supportive, being able to listen, and also obviously thinking about having an awareness of your own skills, your own soft skills and your own life skills. But what a facilitator should be doing in an experiential learning activity is first of all setting up the activity, providing very clear instructions around the activity and what is happening, and making sure that people know what it is they're about to be doing and why they're doing it. So this could be as simple as, let's say you're doing something around listening, okay, very simple listening exercise. You want to set that up very clearly, and you can do that in a number of ways. You might want to set the scene and show some slides, or give a clear rationale for why the activity is important. So you could tell them about focus, for example, and how that's a key skill. And just take some time setting up that activity and making sure that people are clear about what is going to be happening. And then when you're running the activity, it's making sure that people are responding and interacting with the exercise, with what's happening. It's not rushing people through an exercise for the sake of it. It's helping them to work their way through it. Very often with experiential learning, there'll be a lot of focus on the activity, and very little focus on this process of interpreting the activity and allowing time for reflection. So it's important that the facilitator takes people through that stage. And this is all part of that, which is around, so when I showed you that experiential learning cycle earlier on, this is what you're taking people through when you're going into generalizing, helping people to describe what they've experienced and thinking about how that applies to them. And providing feedback in a positive way. Now, feedback is not, these were your strengths, these were your weaknesses. It can be much more about reflecting back to people what actually happened, what you observed, and feeding that back to them, for them to then take that forward. So what you're doing in the exercise is you are enabling that learning opportunity. So if there's been, so if you've taken people through, for example, a listening exercise, and it's getting them to think about how they're going to use what they've learned. So when does that work for them in real life or at work? When have there been times when they haven't listened? When they have listened, what happens? What kind of changes might they make to their behaviour? What sort of other discussions could they do after the session? The most important part about experiential learning in terms of the facilitator is enabling people to reflect. So what, as I said before, what can happen is that there's a lot of emphasis on the actual activity, and this, you see that a lot in corporate learning, so leadership, for example, where there can be a whole day spent on various kinds of leadership activities, but unless people have that opportunity to reflect on that learning and apply it to, be given feedback and apply it to what they're doing in real life, it's actually kind of a waste of time. So it's very, very important to enable people to have that reflection time, which means that often the activity itself can be very, very short, but the rest of the time is all about the reflection. What are ways that teachers can best place themselves to teach these skills? So here are a number of things to be thinking about for you. The first one is to never stop developing yourself. So you need to have your own self-awareness. You need to develop your own life skills. You need to have a good idea of how you're communicating, how you're interacting with other people, what you do, what you don't do. Maybe you need to skill yourself up yourself. There are qualifications that exist. There is training that exists. If this is a field that you'd like to move into, then maybe think about that. Think about what skills could you acquire, what qualifications could you acquire to enable you to move into this area. Don't forget that with English learning, and I haven't touched on this today because there's so many things to talk about, but with English language learning, there are massive opportunities to help people develop their life skills. There's a strong overlap between language learning and life skills and soft skills. So never lose sight of the fact that the teacher is probably best placed to enable and facilitate these kinds of skills in others. You probably do a lot of this kind of thing yourself already in language teaching. It's just a small step up to bring it into life skills. So I would urge you to seek out opportunities where you can apply some of this. There are probably some immediate situations in your environment where you could introduce life skills or start having conversations about how to bring that into what you're doing in your work. So I would urge you to try and do that. Think of something that you can do tomorrow or this week at work to place yourself in a position where you could be offering life skills development. I can stop here for a moment so that we can do some Q&A if you want to use the chat box there. I know there were a couple of things that came up before, but I haven't sort of caught them all. Just looking here. Reflection should be after every exercise or part of the lesson. I think there should be reflection after any point where you've had some kind of experiential learning activity, even if it's very, very short, and they allow people to reflect. Don't wait until the very end of the session. Let people do that straight away in the moment. I'll tell you about a couple of other things we can be doing. In terms of life skills, Macmillan is in a key position at the moment with life skills and equipping teachers. And you may be aware of some of the resources that they offer, but there's a life skills dedicated website with lots of resources, lots of e-lessons. I contribute some of those myself. I also run a website which is free, which is specifically for teachers and practitioners who are delivering soft skills or want to deliver soft skills. So I'm hoping that I've given you some things to think about. And and things that, you know, as you're listening or taking part in the other webinars today, that you might be able to link some of these things to those sessions as well. But primarily, I wanted you to really feel more confident about your ability to help bridge some of this skills gap that exists. There are many, many opportunities for teachers to be part of that and to help bridge that gap between education